All right, so Labas, hello everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to reiterate that we're really excited to be on this panel and a topic that's of great interest to me as someone who's tuning in from Canada. The discussion of, how do we keep Lithuanians connected? How do we talk about citizen engagement in the 21st century? And this topic of digital democracy is of great interest. So with that in mind, I'd actually like to start by asking Dado, the term civic engagement often gets thrown around, and it's something that I think I'd like us to work from your framing. So in about 1 minute or less, could you define what that term means for you?
Thank you, Skaidra. Hello, everybody. Just by the way of introduction, I'm Darius Gaidys, Ambassador at Large for Digital Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and diplomat for past 29 years. So speaking about civic engagement, yes, there are plenty of descriptions, but basically I think that it means the engagement of people in daily life of running the country, being engaged in not only in highly political issues, but also being engaged at the level of community, at the level of the city or district or village, raising important questions and just creating public good for everybody in this community.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that idea of creating public good. That's a good frame. So, with that in mind, as many of us may be aware, and for those tuning in, who are not from Lithuania or of Lithuanian heritage, there's actually approximately 1 million Lithuanians that make up the global diaspora. So those living outside of Lithuania. And from where I'm virtually tuning in from, there's approximately 60,000 Lithuanians in Canada who identify as being of Lithuanian heritage. So when we talk about this idea of like community engagement and civic engagement, how do you think people in the Lithuanian diaspora do not physically live in Lithuania, or have never lived in Lithuania, like myself, can really still feel a sense of belonging, a sense of being a part of democracy and connecting with Lithuanian heritage and culture in this 2020 era that we're in?
Well, I think I should start with the idea of our president, Gitanas Nausėda. He raised the idea of one Lithuania when he won elections last year in May. So he said there is only one Lithuania. And all of us, me, you, and everybody else is a part of that Lithuania, meaning that living in Lithuania or living abroad, we are all of us, we are the part of Lithuania. So the question is how to connect each and every one and to work for the greater purpose for our country. I spent last 4 years in Los Angeles, where I was appointed as a consul general, and coming to Los Angeles, and before that I was also working in Bulgaria, in London, in New York. I saw that somewhat our Lithuanian communities abroad, especially in the United States, they a little bit, they lost the sense of direction. During Soviet occupation, Lithuanian communities abroad, they had the main task keeping Lithuania, well, basically gaining independence. So the independence was what united all of them. Right now, I think there is some confusion because people are just trying to go into some economic direction, maybe somebody trying to go into political, cultural direction, but there is no certain line. And how we can connect all people living abroad. Before many years, we had some traditional meetings, not online, but physical meetings, be it in some community houses, be it in churches. And now I think it's about time, to go online, to be in a virtual cloud, let's say. It's easier to connect people. A lot of things are being transferred into the virtual world from physical world. And I think this is the future that we should all explore and apply in our daily life.
Mm-hmm. Can you sort of elaborate on that a little bit? So this idea of kind of like moving a community that's been, traditionally in person and moving them to the cloud, like what does that kind of look like for you? Like what are some sort of examples or sort of inspirations that make you think that way, or think that Lithuanians abroad can really embrace that or should embrace that?
I think well, we see that Lithuanian Saturday schools are being moved online. So this is one of those events that I was raising even 2, 3, 4 years ago in Los Angeles. Because Los Angeles is a vast city in geographical terms, and the people to Saturday school, they are coming as far as San Diego in south, which is 3 hours drive, and Bakersfield in North Los Angeles, which is also 3 hours drive one way. So the idea was that for them, to make their life easier and more pleasant for children, especially, why not to go online? Why not teach some maybe languages online? Because you cannot teach dancing online, but you can teach a language. You can teach history, geography online quite easily. So I think online schools is one of the opportunities. I think some meetings are being online. Some online gatherings are also a good idea. So this is just the beginning. So I think it's going to develop with the new technological tools pretty well.
Yeah, and those are great examples. And I think too, like, so much of that is also like online communications, right? And so how do you keep people connected? And so I was reading that you know, in your capacity as consul general in Los Angeles, you had actually started an online publication called Vakaruvėja, which translates to Western Winds, to not only, you know, let the community know events that are happening, but actually kind of give perhaps a bit of a voice to the consul, to provide some opinions, to provide some perspectives. And, you know, talking about democracy, I think communication is such a huge part of that, you know, really creating that channel between government and its citizens. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, you know, what the role of embracing digital engagement, digital communication has in really linking the global diaspora.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Digital communication is one of many, let's say, parts of digital engagement. And it's very important, you know, to spread information. Nowadays, anyone who is online, who is in some social network, be it YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or some other, he or she is already a media outlet. If he or she posts some information, he is already spreading the information to the world. Maybe he or she has 10 followers, maybe 10 million, but anyway, this person is a media outlet. So the idea was to spread our information about our daily work, what is the consulate, what our tasks, what is our daily routine, what we are doing to people in the Western community, Western United States community. During this process, we just noticed that people, I think they lack information from Lithuania. So we started to filter news from Lithuania, from our official sources, and put some relevant and interesting source online. Therefore, this way we developed our website Vakaruvėja. And when I left, just before leaving Los Angeles, we decided that we should move this website from purely consular website to community website. So now it's being jointly managed by Consulate General in Los Angeles, by Lithuanian community of Los Angeles and other communities, and also by our Catholic Church, St. Casimir Church in Los Angeles, because this is the center and the hub of Los Angeles Lithuanian life. And their voice is very important in that community.
And has this way of like linking groups, has that really you know, filtered into your role as a digital, you know, digital affairs ambassador? Like, has communications, that thinking of like linking, that thinking of the possibility of digital, you know, linking many communities together, like how has that now influenced your new role? And maybe you could just also take a moment to kind of, you know, elaborate a little bit on some of the priorities that you're facing, and because I mean, again, this idea of being you know, responsible for a digital agenda, I mean, that's still a relatively new concept in government. I mean, in Canada, where I'm working too, like, we only just, you know, appointed a Ministry of Digital Affairs and a bureaucrat to look over that in the last 5 years. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you go from, you know, building this sort of online community, all this support on the consulate side, linking the diaspora, and then now taking on this portfolio that's quite new to government, but at least from where I sit, a lot of parallels or a lot of synergies exist between the two worlds.
Absolutely. So this is, as you rightly pointed, so this is the new portfolio in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I have basically two major tasks. One task is our internal task within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and my idea is to make our organization, our institution, belonging to 21st century, maybe even to 22nd century. So the idea is to adapt as many technical innovations in our daily work as possible. We started with some small but very important tasks. Like we have a chatbot, we have a fake news filter. We are planning to have our internal system to make our daily reporting easier. We are also working with the GovTech lab on establishing remote identification of consular clients, so that the people who can be remotely identified, they do not necessarily need to fly over from, let's say, from Hawaii to Los Angeles, or from Wisconsin, let's say, to New York, saving time and money, of course, and make it easier. So this is my internal, basically, task. And looking externally, the biggest task is how to present Lithuania abroad, as a modern tech-savvy country. We have a lot to brag about. For example, we have more than 600, well, maybe not more, but around 600 public services online in one single platform, on e-government platform. So any Lithuanian citizen can log in and change driver's license online. He can sign powers of attorney. He can enroll a child into the preschool or school. So a lot of services that are online in one single platform. This is very big, but not everybody knows that abroad. We just opened the open data, governmental open data platform. So basically the governmental institutions are opening data files. They are anonymized, of course, and they are open for everybody and free to use to make some explorations. So my task is, to spread the word, and I am doing in my daily life.
That's so interesting. I didn't even realize that so many of these services could be done online. That's that's fantastic. And I'm just curious, like what are some of the, the next, like the next services to move online? Like what are, you mentioned driver's licenses, but what's what's in the queue, what's to come? And especially when we think of like Lithuanians, again, not living in Lithuania, what are some services do you think people would really would find really useful?
It's difficult to say. First of all, you need to explore those 600 services, and they are a lot. You can write a complaint, to police, to report a crime, and many things. But yeah, this is a really big achievement of our government, to having all this in one place. Because there are more services, but they are scattered around. But to have in one portal, it's very important. And I think every day we are just getting more and more. It's very difficult to predict, what kind of services are going online, but it's getting governmental. And if we speak about private initiatives, we just saw a huge when the pandemic hit. We saw that, for example, online sales just flourished. The services such as Barbora, the home delivery from supermarkets, just flourished. We have many companies that are delivering food from restaurants. So everything is going online and getting spread out. So this is very important for us. It shows that we are, the businesses are adapting to new realities, and looking forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in addition to businesses, obviously, I'd like to point our attention to sort of this idea, this move to allow online voting to be an option for those in the diaspora, right? And so, at least I know from my community, that's a very exciting service in terms of connecting Lithuanians abroad and really just sort of joining this movement to try and get folks to feel like they can actually participate in democracy from the comfort of their home or from, where they live. And so noting that, Lithuania's parliamentary elections are tracking for October 11th, and that the Lithuanian government has now officially backed a pilot version for those living abroad to test online voting. And again, noting that Estonia, our Baltic neighbor, has provided the option for citizens to online vote for over a decade now, with great uptake and consistency, and cybersecurity really folded into the process. Really just curious, like, what is the Lithuanian government learning as they explore this new way of engaging citizens in a vote that is, quite historic in terms of how we vote or could vote?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you that online voting is probably the great tool how to engage people living abroad. Well, everybody knows that we have paper voting, be it in person or by mail. So now there is an experiment with online voting. Although I am a tech ambassador, the digital ambassador, I might concern like some ludite person, and online voting it's good, but there are some concerns with it. For example, the security of voting. Cybersecurity is the most important issue. Another issue is what is happening at the end user side. Do we know if the person who digitally identified himself as let's say Darius Gaidys, is it him voting or somebody else is voting in his name with the stolen identity? How the administration knows that this is my free will, that nobody's standing behind my back and showing which box to mark, at which name of the candidate. So there are many questions about online voting, but again, we need to start. So I think it's good if we start with the Lithuanians voting abroad to see what's happening. And then, yes, the lessons learned will be analyzed, and we will move forward from that. But as I said, digital voting is one of the greatest tools for the democracy, as well as the petitions. Probably you know that we have a long petitions that every Lithuanian citizen may submit a petition to Lithuanian authorities. There is a website, www.peticijos.lt. I just checked. There are hundreds of petitions right now being published. People may sign electronically. And the most popular one, I'm not sure about the content of the petition, if it's right or wrong, but anyway, the most popular petition right now has almost 18,000 signatures. It's huge. So that means that the 18,000 of Lithuanians, they know how to get online. They know where to find this website. Right. They know the use of it, and they express their will, and they subscribe to the petition. It concerns our Minister of Health. Yeah. So these tools are very important for digital democracy.
Yeah, definitely. And do you? I mean, I don't know if you have this answer, so not to throw you under the bus, but do you have a sense of like how many Lithuanians abroad might actually like consider using online voting? Like, do you have a sense of if it'll be comparable to sort of like mail-in voting, or like even just like general predictions that the government is finding, or is it too soon to tell?
It's too soon to tell, first of all, because the registration of voters is still going on, and it has at least 2 weeks in Japan and I think South Africa and some other countries. In Los Angeles, I think it's until the end of September, so it's still quite time. Normally, from my experience, parliamentary elections are not as popular as presidential elections, because everybody knows that there is a president, that you have to elect one person, and for parliamentary elections you have a lot of candidates, and then you have those persons elected by the political party lists. So it's a lot of confusion. So registration is going on. The numbers are not that big at the moment. I think it's about 20,000 people as we speak today. I hope it will increase to at least 30, 40, 50,000 people when the online registrations will finish in 3 or 4 weeks' time. So let's hope for bigger numbers. And I'm very happy that there is a great initiative by Lithuanians living abroad. It's Mūsų metas dabar. So they are doing a great work online, asking people to register and vote. And also I should mention, as a great example of participation of our diaspora, that we have the leader of UK Lithuanian community, this district that is designated for people, Lithuanians living abroad. So I think it's a good example of civic engagement in a digital world.
Yeah, for sure. That's a fantastic thing. And I'm just curious too, like if you could put out a call to action to all Lithuanians abroad with respect to this election, like what are, 1 or 2 things that people should be doing, or that would be really helpful in terms of getting people to register. I think that's a really important note that, you have to register before you can actually vote, and there's confusion around parliamentary versus presidential. And so, what are some ideas, or what are some things that you might encourage people to be doing right now as we head into this election phase?
Absolutely. So I would like to say to Lithuanians living abroad that this is your chance and this is your opportunity. Unfortunately, one of biggest opportunities was missed last year when Lithuanians voted on a referendum on dual citizenship. We didn't have enough voters, unfortunately. So this is then another opportunity to show that you care about Lithuania, about the future, about the country, about the way the country moves forward. If you register and participate, you will have your own member of parliament, elected by your votes only. Nobody in Lithuania will vote for in this constituency. So this person, whomever he or she is, we have, I think, 6 or 7 right now, this person will represent you, and this person, being a member of parliament, will raise questions that are important to all of you. I know that dual citizenship, or basically the issue of keeping Lithuanian citizenship when receiving another, is of the utmost importance. I know that there are many questions concerning social security, pensions, education, culture, keeping language, so a plethora of questions that this member of parliament elected by your votes, Lithuanians living abroad, will be addressing on daily life of next 4 years. So this is my call to action.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great one. And I think I want to kind of like just circle back to, what the world can learn from Lithuania when it comes to engaging citizens abroad and really forwarding digital democracy and civic engagement. I mean, again, Estonia is always referenced, but I think there's so much to learn from Lithuania too. And, going beyond these services online, like what are some other things that, you really take pride in as being a part of this, as this team government, but also as a way to draw attention to other sectors that are looking to kind of innovate with GovTech and digital democracy?
I should mention some great initiatives by Lithuanians living abroad, how to use the knowledge and how to use the networks of contacts and help Lithuania in business, basically. So global Lithuanian leaders, we have a great example that it's a network of Lithuanians living, professional Lithuanians living and working abroad, who dedicate a little bit of their time and a little bit of their knowledge and contacts to Lithuania, helping, let's say, startups to get entry in foreign markets, or making right connections, or just sometimes just coming back to Lithuania and teaching at the universities, at schools, and sharing their knowledge. So this is a life that is not very well known, but I think it shows our solidarity with each other, and of course, being patriotic and the love for our country. I'm very happy with that.
Is there something like, that's wonderful. And I think that network is such a key part of it. But thinking like, kind of going into like what government can like this idea of government as a platform you had mentioned, like, are there other key components that enable Lithuania to connect with citizens abroad that is worth noting for other countries that might look to, I don't know, borrow or fork or seek inspiration from what the Lithuanian government is doing in the realm of digital democracy or digital engagement?
So let's start with the elections. I think this is the best part of digital democracy because it's directly related with democracy. I would refer to some interesting articles that I read recently. When the phone was invented at the beginning of 20th century, some news outlets in the United States were so happy, saying right now we are coming back to Athenian democracy when everybody can be engaged in democratic process and provide his or her voice, over the phone. 100 years passed and we have not a phone, but we have internet, we have online. So the democracy evolved and the citizens' participation through elections, through petitions, through small daily works like reporting a pothole somewhere or reporting a graffiti, it's a daily engagement and you don't need to think globally, but you can just do something very small for your community and you can do it online. So this is where our country is moving forward.
Okay, that's excellent. And that's great. And, I think you answered this in a number of ways, but I think, maybe talking a little bit more about, just to end off, because it's all about engaging from Vilnius to New York, what are some Lithuanian communities, like countries or actual like grassroots level Lithuanian initiatives beyond the Mūsu Metas Dabar. So that's a great initiative. I think that's a good one. So Mūsu Metas Dabar, our time is now in English. But, despite not being able to meet in person and having to connect physically and online, what are some communities that are really inspiring you in the global diaspora that you've really taken note during this time?
I don't want to select one or two communities. I think every community doesn't matter whether it's big community like Lithuanians in UK or Lithuanians in Ireland, or tiny community of Lithuanians in Utah. It's 10 maybe people. Everyone is very dear for me, and I think that each of them, they have their pride in being Lithuanians, being connected and working for the better good, for working for Lithuania. So I'm proud of each and every Lithuanian community abroad.
That's a great way to phrase that. I like that. Well, I think we're coming up to sort of our 30 minutes, but I did want to give you sort of the last word and share any final thoughts you have on this topic area, or just work ahead, or anything to sort of leave this panel with as we wrap up.
Yeah, well, normally the panel should end with the call to action. I already said one call to action, participate in the register for the voting and participate in elections. But I would like to call on every Lithuanian, be active citizens. Don't be passive, be active. We see what happened in Belarus. We consider the Belarusians, our neighbors, our dear neighbors, to be just passive people. And suddenly there are 200, 300 people, 300,000 people in the streets protesting and raising their voices. So maybe we don't need to go into the streets as Lithuanians today or tomorrow, but my call to action is for Lithuanians: be active, be interested in your community, be interested in your block of flats, be interested in your courtyard, be interested in your street, in your town, in your village, in your city, and be interested in Lithuania. Your voice really matters, and especially now in the digital era.
That's great. I agree. Our voice matters.
Good. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I think I'm going to wrap it here.